Hello and Jai Shri Ram to all of you. So I am here to discuss about insecurity through a spiritual vision. So we all have desires and we want to fulfill them. But if we see around us, each one is trying to do the same. But many forces come in between and our desires are not fulfilled, or there is a doubt whether they will get fulfilled or not, and that creates insecurity. So when we want an answer from spirituality, we are told that you should be free from all desires, and that is just like that. If you go to someone to ask for a solution and he says just forget the question itself, so we don't find it convincing, isn't it? And the thought of giving up all desires is itself a desire, isn't it? So we should find out ourselves that what is it that can solve all our problems that come in the way of our desires. So let's start with the first example. King Manu and Queen Shatrupa go to the jungles and they do hard penance as they want to see God. When God appears before them, then King Manu asks God, he tells him in an indirect way that I want a son like you, which actually means that he wanted God to be his son, and God granted his boon. Then he turned to Queen Shatrupa. If we use our common sense, both have done this hard penance for the same wish to come true. So automatically Queen Shatrupa's wish is also granted because she would be the mother of God himself. But God asked him that please tell me what you want. So, do you see that God is not telling them that shun all your desires? Instead, He is asking, what do you want? And we all want happiness, right? So Queen Shatrupa asks for several things and she starts with sukh or happiness, and that is the ultimate desire. And she asks for many other things, including vivek or wisdom, or it is a state of mind where the intellect is free from all weaknesses and shortcomings, it is free from ego, it is free from wrong justifications, superiority complex, any confusion, there is ultimate clarity. So she asks for that, but God does grant all her wishes, but what he does is that he highlights vivek even before happiness. And we can see what is the end result in the next birth when they are born again as King Dashrath and Queen Kaushalya, and Lord Ram, who is God himself, is born to them. In the turn of events, we see that Lord Ram is being sent to exile by Queen Kaikeyi, and King Dashrath feels helpless, and he gives away his life in separation of Lord Ram, because when he asked God to be his son in his previous birth, he had also added one thing, that he should never become aware of the fact that God himself was his son. See, he got the chance to ask for the biggest ever thing that he could ask, but he asked this, while Queen Kaushalya, or when she was Shatrupa in the previous birth, had asked for vivek. So we see that King Dashrath gives up his life, but Queen Kaushalya doesn't lose her mental balance. She knows her responsibilities. She knows how to act because everyone around her is already feeling helpless. So she doesn't lose her mental balance. And when the younger brother of Lord Ram, that is Shri Bharat, comes to Ayodhya, she goes with him to Chitrakoot to have darshan of Lord Ram. If she would have also died like King Dashrath, she would not have got the darshan of Lord Ram. And she waited patiently for 14 years. And Lord Ram finally came back to Ayodhya and Ram Rajya was established. So we see that wisdom or prudent mind or vivek is very necessary to sail through times of insecurity, because it there is no hit and trial method. If you are using your vivek, the wisdom is the way to achieve happiness, the ultimate goal of life, and to sail through all insecurities. So now, here is the scene. King Dashrath has died. Lord Ram, Sita and his younger brother, that is younger brother of Lord Ram, Lakshman, also accompany Lord Ram to the forest. And Bharat was not in Ayodhya. He was at his maternal uncle's house. On receiving the news, he arrives in Ayodhya. And we see Ayodhya was not a small kingdom. King Dashrath was so powerful ruler that even the god of heaven, that is Indra, offered his half throne to King Dashrath. So you can imagine what a great kingdom it was. And if you visualize the scene, you can see that it posed the greatest insecure situations. When its ruler had died, the two sons were away in the jungle and the other two sons were not present. So any enemy could have invaded Ayodhya, or there could be cases of rebellion inside the kingdom itself. If you think there can be so many grave situations. So everybody was adamant that as soon as Bharat arrived, they all asked him to sit on the throne of Ayodhya, so that all insecurities are dealt with on an urgent basis. Even says Vashisht, who was the head priest of the clan and whose decisions even the king would abide by. And the mother of Lord Ram, that is Queen Kaushalya, she also insisted. All the ministers insisted, all the country folk insisted that Bharat should sit on the throne till the time when Lord Ram returns back after 14 years. It was very, very normal for any person to accept that offer, even out of selfishness or out of selflessness. But Bharat was not like that. He could see that this solution is emerging out of instant solution to the posing insecurity. So he said that I will not sit on the throne, and he declared that everyone will go to Chitrakoot the next morning, the place where Lord Ram was staying with Sita and Lakshman, and they would have the darshan of Lord Ram, because everybody was grief-stricken, heartbroken, hopeless, and Ram was their only hope. I mean, the biggest hope. or whatever way you want to put it. So making Bharat sit on the throne was not the right answer. So Bharat knew that he should not compromise for a short-term solution. And we know that everybody goes to Chitrakoot, but Lord Ram doesn't return to Ayodhya. But now Bharat rules the kingdom not as the king, but he rules the kingdom as the true representative of Lord Ram. And everyone is at peace. Whenever we are facing any kind of insecurity, we start blaming people, situations, luck, destiny, etc. for all the problems. But Bharatji took all the blame on himself. Now it sounds weird because Bharatji was not present in Ayodhya where all these events were taking place. He did not even have any clue about it. It was his mother Kaikeyi who had sent Lord Ram to exile, and her maidservant Manthara had influenced her in such a way that she took this extreme step. So we see that Bharat had no role in all of this, but he took all the blame on himself. He looked deeply and he said that somewhere in her heart Kaikeyi believed that I will take the kingdom in place of my brother Ram. So there must be some fault in me that my mother had no faith in me, that I will never accept the throne and let my dearest brother go to exile. So when he took all the blame on himself instead of blaming others, he thought, now what is the way? What is the solution? And then he found out one solution, like they say, one size fits all. So as soon as he declared that all will go to Chitrakoot the next morning, it felt that like the desert was full of water. All the lifeless people around him had a um, new wave of life and hope and happiness emerging out of them. And that is why Bharat took everyone to Chitrakoot, because he knew the real solution. And he even took his mother Kaikeyi and Manthara along with him. And had he opted for the blame game, then he would have sat on the throne, or even could have created more insecurities for the already grief-stricken Ayodhya. With these two examples of King Manu and Manthara, we can see what results self-induced insecurity can bring. They can be both positive and negative. So let's see how it happens. So taking the example of King Manu, we can see that everything was picture perfect in King Manu's life. But he contemplated, he thought that is it all this life is meant for, or is there any other higher goal? And then he realized that the highest goal of life is to attain God. And then he goes to the jungles with his wife, Queen Shatrupa, to do penance, and he succeeds in pleasing God himself. God appears and both of them ask God to be their son. So we see that this self-induced insecurity leads them in attaining God himself. While in the second example, we see that when Mantra, who is the maidservant of Queen Kaikeyi, comes to know that the next morning Lord Ram will be crowned as the future king of Ayodhya, she feels jealous. If you think about it, there is no harm for herself in the future, even if Lord Ram is crowned as the future king. But she feels jealous because she serves Queen Kaikeyi and her son Bharat is not to be crowned the future king. So she decides to topple the plan of King Dashrath, and she succeeds in it, and Lord Ram is sent to exile for 14 years. So we see that in the first example, the self-induced insecurity leads to attainment of God Himself, while in the second example we can see that God was there, but the self-induced insecurity leads to separation from God. So you see that insecurity can work both ways. So decide which way you want to go. Whenever we feel insecure, we want to close all the doors that can lead to an unsafe future. And if you think about it, it's like living in a house which has no windows, no doors, no ventilators, but then it's not a house. It is actually your own tomb. And that's what Queen Kaikeyi did. If she wanted her son Bharat to sit on the throne, she could have asked for it, and nobody would have any problem in it, as Bharat was dearest to Lord Ram and everyone else. But what she did, she tried to remove all the hurdles from her way, and she sent Lord Ram to exile before even waiting for her son Bharat and Shatrughan to come back. Shatrughan was the son of Queen Sumitra, and Bharat and Shatrughan had gone to Bharat's maternal uncle's house. So she did not wait for them to return. And when Lord Ram was going to the forest, his wife Sita and younger brother Lakshman also decided to go with him, but Queen Kaikeyi did not stop them because it was good for her, as if all the three would go, then Lord Ram's mother Queen Kaushalya and Lakshman's mother Sumitra will be completely helpless and will not ruin the plot of Queen Kaikeyi. She was not even disturbed by the deteriorating condition of King Dashrath when Lord Ram was about to go, and she did not even mourn his death when he died from the separation of Lord Ram. She knew that if Bharat would return even before Lord Ram had left, then he would never allow Lord Ram, Sita or Lakshman to go to the forest. He would do anything. So you see that it was a false self-induced insecurity which was not even real, but this fear made her so ruthless that she created real insecurity for herself and for everyone else around her. Intellect, which is inflicted with ego, does not allow you to accept someone else as superior to you. Lord Shiva went to Dandakvan to sage Agast's ashram with his wife Sati. Parvati was Sati in her previous life. So they went to the sage ashram to listen to Ram Katha. Lord Shiva wanted to listen Ram Katha. The sage worshipped them washed their feet before he started with Ram Katha, and this made Sati ji conclude that he is inferior to me, that is why he is worshipping me. So why should I listen to his discourse? And the other thing that she thought, that she is a pativrata, or loyal to her husband only. So why should she listen the katha or the story of someone else, some other man? And that is why she never listened what sage Vasisht was saying. And this is the main cause for the turn of events that took place later. As they were returning, um, Lord Shiva saw that Shri Ram and Shri Lakshman were passing by, and they saw that Lord Ram was crying bitterly and asking the trees and creepers that, have you seen my wife Sita? And he was really in great grief and sorrow. And even after seeing this scene, Lord Shiva bowed down to Lord Ram from a distance, saying, Jai Satchidanand. And Sati was confused that, see, this poor prince who is dressed as a sage and is crying like a lustful man for his separated wife, and my husband is bowing down to him and saying Jai Satchidanand. She could have asked Lord Shiva the reason, but she didn't, and she could not accept that someone could be superior to her husband. But if you look deeply, then you will see that she could not accept that someone could be superior to her, because she was really proud of her intelligence, and her intelligence didn't allow her to believe that a man who is visible as crying can be God himself, because she concluded that God should always be laughing, always be happy. But Lord Shiva believed that whether God is laughing or crying, his trust was never, his trust never wavered, his trust never flickered, it was immovable. So Sati did not tell Lord Shiva what was going on in her mind, and she decided to test Sri Ram. And she utterly failed there, because Lord Ram really showed her that who he was. But when she returned to Lord Shiva and he asked what did she do, she told lies to Lord Shiva, and she did not accept her folly. And that is the biggest shortcoming of people who have sharp intellect, and they are full of ego and pride, and it is very difficult for them to accept their mistakes or shortcomings. So we see that many events follow, and finally Sati had to die. So you see that she lived with God himself, that is Lord Shiva, but still, because her intellect was inflicted with ego, suspicion, pride, that she had to give up her life. So we see that sometimes trust is the only thing that you should rely upon, and you should have great patience for the truth to unravel itself. When one sees the world through the filters of ego and superiority complex, even the sharpest of minds create utmost insecurity. What whatever appears to the eye is not always the reality. So somewhere we have to take the shelter of trust, and that's what helps to sail through insecurity. When Sampati tells the monkeys that Sita ji is sitting in Lanka, the question arises that who will go to Lanka? The old bear Jamvan remembers his old young days, and he tells the glorious stories of his past, and he says that now he is old and he is unable to go crossing that vast ocean. Then everybody starts looking at Angad, but Angad says he is the son of Bali, if you remember my earlier stories. So he says, I can cross this vast ocean, but there is no guarantee that I will return back. So he also expresses his inability. Then only Hanumanji is left. But there is a problem. Hanumanji doesn't remember his immense powers. And then Jamvan reminds him that Hanuman, you are the messenger of God and you have taken this birth to serve his purpose. Hearing this, Hanumanji remembers his powers, grows huge in size, and then he climbs a mountain which denotes the mountain of vichar or contemplation, and he says that I am feeling utterly happy in my heart and I am sure that the job will be done. And saying this, he takes a giant leap in the air over the vast ocean. When you grow big than your own self, and when you become a good instrument, a perfect instrument for your own good and for everyone else, then you get superpowers, a new vision and a higher goal which will benefit you and all. And that itself ends the insecurity. But what if we cannot take that giant leap of faith like Hanumanji? Then we can go step by step. The monkeys build a stone bridge connecting pieces of stone together. But there is one common thing, that Hanumanji, when he took that giant leap, he had Lord Ram's ring in his mouth, and that ring had Lord's name, that is Ram, engraved on it. And these stones, Nal and Neel, are two monkeys who engraved Lord Ram's name on each of the stone, and that made them float on sea water, and they did not drown or sink. So, what does it signify? We can see that the ring and the stones are lifeless or inanimate objects, but still there is one common factor between them and between us, and that is our being or existence, which is not different from any other being or existence, anyone else's being or existence. That's what binds us together. So there is no insecurity now, because everyone is connected to the other. And realizing this, we act out of benefit for all and not just to ourselves. We can also look at it in the way, benefit for me but loss to none. So, as you saw that we have considered the ring and the stone as in the same category of being or existence, so are the mountains, the rivers, the sun, the moon, the trees, the plants, the animals, and us, the human beings. So we see that every one is connected, interconnected, and we cannot deny it and not pretend that we cannot see it. So now, where is the insecurity? So now we can move together, and even if we are not moving together, there is an acceptance in our heart for everyone else that he is the same like us. There is no difference. We all coexist in this world, and so there is no fear of insecurity now. And if you want to see the complete transformation from insecurity to complete trust and fearlessness, then you can watch Angad, who was the son of Bali. So we see that Sugriv had sent the monkey army to search for Sita ji, and the monkeys were constantly looking for Sita ji everywhere without taking any rest or sleep or food or water. But when 1 month passes by, they are tired, they are hungry, they are thirsty, and they were looking for water and food. And then Hanumanji points out at a cave, saying that he could see water birds entering into the cave. Till now Angad was leading the monkeys, but on seeing the cave he said that he won't be able to go to the cave because this cave or a cave was responsible for his father Bali's death and everything that happened and proved like a bad experience in his life. So cave was like the greatest symbol of insecurity for Angad. But later on we see when these monkeys were sitting on the shore of the sea, then when Sampati, which was really horrifying creature, he came out of the cave, then this time Angad was not as scared as earlier, and he used his prudence, his wisdom, and he said some things. If you have watched my earlier video, you would know, and that saved the monkeys from becoming a prey of Sampati the vulture. And when they say that someone has to go over the sea to Lanka, then Angaji has gained more confidence, and he says that I am sure that I can go over the sea, but I have a doubt that I will be able to return back or not. So we see that he is gradually progressing, and in the end we see the climax when Lord Ram with the monkey army crosses the sea and reaches Lanka. Then he sends Angad as his messenger to Ravan, and everyone knows that Lord Ram himself had killed the father of Angad, that is Bali, but still he has that trust in Angad, and his trust proves right. Ravan tries to create a doubt in Angad's head, saying that you are serving that man who killed your father. But Angad doesn't give in, and we see that earlier Hanumanji had also gone as Lord Ram's messenger to Ravan's courtroom, and we see that he was kicked, he was abused, he was prisoned, and his tail was set on fire, while Hanumanji was such a powerful being, and we see that Angad is no match for him. So it was quite obvious that Angad should not feel that confident. But we see that Angad puts his feet in the courtroom of Ravana and challenges everyone that if anyone is able to pull off my leg from the ground, then we will lose Sita, and I guarantee you that Ram will go back to Ayodhya. And this forces even Ravan after everyone else has failed, then Ravan comes and stoops to Angad's feet and he catches hold of Angad's foot to lift it. So we see that this is the climax where Angad is full of this trust and this courage and this power. Where have all the fears gone? Where have all the insecurities gone? So we see that this is a new Angad. So we see that this is his trust in the Lord that builds the trust in himself, and that is also an inspiration for us that we all are connected to the same powerhouse that is God, and we are more than we think or believe. We can do anything. Just grow out of yourself. Be the perfect instrument for God. All your desires will be fulfilled. You need not leave your desires, because then the desires will be yours, but they will be fulfilled by God. So we see that what are the various forms of insecurities, how they arise, and how we can get over them and fulfill our desires. But you will have to work for it. If you are ready, then start from this very moment, and I assure you that your desires will be fulfilled without any fear or insecurity of the future. So that was it, and I will meet you in the next session. Till then, bye. Jai Siya Ram.